Our reading today comes from Genesis 25:27 to 33. The boys grew up, and Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the open country, while Jacob was a quiet man, staying among the tents. Isaac, who had a taste for wild game, loved Esau, and Rebekah loved Jacob. Once, when Jacob was cooking stew, Esau came in from the open country, famished. He said to Jacob, "Quick, let me have some of that red stew. I'm famished." This is why he was also called Edom. Jacob replied, "First sell me your birthright." "Look, I'm about to die," Esau said. "What good is a birthright to me?" But Jacob said, "Swear to me first." So he swore an oath to him, selling his birthright to Jacob. Our identity is shaped in relationship, whether for good or ill, and God's grace can redeem even fractured stories. We're all different, and siblings are no different than anybody else in the world. Growing up under the same roof, one might love the outdoors, another might enjoy the indoors, one might enjoy climbing trees and chasing adventure and thriving in the wild, and the other books, cooking, conversation, the quiet of home. They share parents, they share meals, they share childhood, but their paths diverge. And sometimes those differences spark rivalry, misunderstanding, even conflict. That's the picture Genesis 25 paints of Esau and Jacob. Esau the hunter, the man of the field, and Jacob the quiet one, dwelling in tents. Their parents' favoritism only deepens the divide. Isaac loves Esau for his gain, and Rebekah loves Jacob. And then comes the stew, a moment of hunger, bargaining and betrayal. Esau trades his birthright for a bowl of lentils. Jacob seizes the chance to grasp which isn't his yet. It's a story of relationship, messy, complicated, defining. And it reminds us that identity is never formed in isolation. Who we are is shaped in the crucible of relationship, with family, with others, and with God. So identity, as we're going to walk through this, identity is shaped by family dynamics, by conflict and choice, and by God's grace in relationship. Firstly, shaped by family dynamics. The text begins with this contrast. Esau was a skilled hunter, a man of the field, while Jacob was a quiet man, dwelling in tents. Already their identities are being narrated in relation to each other, comparing each other. And then comes the painful line. Isaac loved Esau, Rebekah loved Jacob. Imagine being introduced not by your name, but by comparison. She's the clever one, he's the sporty one, she's the quiet one, he's the loud one. Labels stick. They shape how we see ourselves, how others see us, how we live. Sometimes you might find yourself the responsible one in the family, or you might find that your brother or your sister is the funny one. Even as adults, we can look back and see that we were put into these roles by the adults around us when we were children. Family dynamics shape identity in ways that bless or burden. Wesley reminds us that holiness is social. We are formed in community, and that includes our families, our family of origin, with all that complexity. Our identity is never just me. It's me with. Think about the labels that have been attached to you, or the labels that you have attached to other people. Which ones are gifts? Which ones need God's healing? Identity in relationship begins with honesty about the stories we've carried. My second point is that identity is tested in conflict and in choice. The stew scene is so vivid. Esau comes in exhausted, driven by hunger. Jacob seizes the moment. Sell me your birthright now. And Esau, thinking only of the present, despises his birthright. Jacob, thinking only of advantage, manipulates his brother. Both are diminished by this exchange. Imagine being so hungry, so tired that you'd give up something precious for a quick fix to fill your hunger. Imagine being so driven by ambition that you're going to exploit someone else's weakness. We've all been there. Tempted to trade long-term blessing for short-term satisfaction, tempted to grasp rather than trust. Once I was talking to this young man, he was married, but someone had walked in his path and he had looked twice. He almost, he says, walked away from his marriage for that moment, that transitory moment of attention of someone else. And at first he thought, what's the harm? But then realised that he was about to trade something sacred for something extremely shallow. Like Esau, he was tempted to despise his birthright. Jesus faced this in the wilderness, tempted to turn stones into bread, to grasp power without the cross. But unlike Esau and Jacob, he chose trust over impulse. He chose obedience over manipulation. Wesley spoke of this grace as power to choose differently, to resist sin, to live holy lives, to have our identity tested in conflict. But grace enables us to choose well. Is there this week something that you are tempted to trade your long-term faithfulness for short-term relief? Is there something that you are tempted to grasp? Hold on tightly to grasp, take off someone else, rather than trust that the path God has you on is good. Identity in relationship is tested in these choices. And then identity is redeemed by God's grace in relationship. This is my final point. The story of Jacob and Esau does not end with stew. Isn't that amazing? We thank God for that. Their relationship is fractured for years, but later in Genesis 33, they meet again. Jacob is very scared of this meeting. He fears that Esau has vengeance on his mind, but instead Esau runs to embrace him. Grace breaks in. Relationship is restored. How fantastic is that? And that's what we have with the Father in our relationship. Imagine carrying years of rivalry and resentment and regret, and then one day being embraced instead of attacked. That's the power of grace in relationship. There was an inheritance dispute. You know these stories. They're all over West Cork. You know these stories well. There was a bitter inheritance dispute and two sisters didn't speak for years. And then one day, one of them just sent a card that said, "I miss you." It didn't erase the past, but it opened the door. And slowly they rebuilt their relationship. Grace redeemed what rivalry had broken. Wesley's vision of sanctification was not just personal holiness, but it was relational holiness, love perfected in community. Identity is redeemed not in isolation, but in reconciled relationships. Is there a relationship in your life where God might be inviting you to move towards grace? It may not be a dramatic reconciliation, but perhaps a small step, a prayer, a card, a softening of heart, Identity in relationship is redeemed when grace has the last word. To conclude, imagine your story in God's family. Last week we talked about the family photo. The family photo that is not airbrushed, not perfect, but real. Siblings who clash, parents who play favourites, choices that wound, and yet through it all, God's grace is weaving redemption. Genesis 25 reminds us that identity, yes, is shaped by family dynamics, but it's not limited by them. Identity is tested in conflict and choice, yes, but grace gives us power to choose differently. Identity is redeemed by God's grace in relationship. Even fractured stories can be healed. So this week, remember, you are not defined by rivalry, by comparison, by labels, or by past choices. You are defined by grace. Your identity is found not in isolation, but in relationship with others, and above all, with the God who calls you beloved. And here's the hope. Even when relationships feel broken beyond repair, God is still at work. The God who brought Jacob and Esau back together again. The God who reconciled us to himself through Christ is the same God who can soften hearts, mend divides, write new chapters in our stories. No rivalry, no regret, no comparison, no wound is beyond his reach. So imagine this. One day when all is made new, we will sit at a table not of rivalry, but of reconciliation. Brothers and sisters once divided will be gathered as family, and the name spoken over us will not be the clever one, the strong one, the failure, the beloved. What will be spoken over us is that we are beloved children of God. That is our truest identity, born in relationship, redeemed by grace, and fulfilled in love.